So a few weeks ago, I was scrolling and I saw a little short video of these guys, and they were doing a little trivia, and the topic was, if prices do the same thing as they have done in the last 30 years, what will things cost 30 years from now? And it was made in the US, so I got a little curious and I decided to run the numbers for what they'll be in Saskatchewan. So, a little trivia. If things continue as they have for the last 30 years and for the next 30 years, the average annual salary will be $140,000 or $11,500 a month, which that sounds pretty sweet. So that's a little bit more than double what it is right now. The average rent, though, will be $3,600 a month. So increase slightly more than wages will have increased. The average new car will cost around $200,000, or just over triple what they are currently. And the average house in Saskatchewan will cost $1.4 million, or 4 times what they are now, which would be 10 times the average annual salary that people would make. Now, there is absolutely no guarantee that things will continue the way that they have, but those numbers don't make me super excited for the future, and especially not for my kids. And there's a lot of things to be worried about and a lot of things that are changing our world. People these days are waiting longer than previous generations to get married, to have kids, to move out, to buy a house, to finish degrees, all sorts of things. And I remember having a conversation with a coworker. This is like 12 years ago when I was doing construction. And he asked me, like, do you want to have kids someday? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, why? Why would you want to bring kids into the world when the world is so messed up? And he was quite shocked and surprised that I wanted that, because he just looked at the world as just terrible. And the last 6 years, food prices have increased over 30%, and the world seems more unstable than it has in a long time. Our relationship with the States has changed, and the world seems to be on the brink of another massive war. We don't trust media at all, and morality and our cultural values have shifted like crazy. And so it's really easy to look at this and not just to be pessimistic, but also fearful about what the future will look like, and worry about what will happen and what won't happen. Worry about finances and family and our community and whether we'll actually be able to have a future. And we can try to live our lives to avoid the terrible future that we have in mind. So with that lovely thought, we can turn to Numbers chapter 13. So as we turn there, the passage that we're going to read this is about 1 to 2 years after Israel has left Egypt. So you'll remember Israel, they lived in Egypt for about 430 years. And a lot of that time they were slaves until God sent Moses to kind of save them. And God sent 12 or 10 plagues onto Egypt, and eventually Pharaoh lets them go. Israel walks through the ocean, and then God provides them with water miraculously, provides them with food every day, and he gives them laws that they should live by and obey. And then after that, they're traveling to the promised land. This is the land that God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and now they actually get to go and finally be there, finally get the land that God has promised them all those years ago. So let's take a look. Numbers 13, verses 1 to 3. The Lord now said to Moses, "Send out men to explore the land of Canaan, the land I am giving to the Israelites. Send one leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes." So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He sent out 12 men, all tribal leaders of Israel, from their camp in the wilderness of Paran. So God tells Moses, "Go send some people, check out the land, and I am going to give you this land." So they pick leaders, and these are not just your average guys. These are like some of the top guys in all of Egypt. They're super well respected. They're leaders of their people. And so these men, they go off, 40 days pass, and I imagine there would have been a lot of excitement and anticipation amongst the Israelites as they waited for these 12 men to get back with their report. Right? I imagine there would have been a lot of wondering and dreaming about what might their future look like. Like, what will it be like for their kids? Maybe dreaming of how much more amazing things will be. Right? They won't have to live in tents anymore. They'll actually get to build a house. They'll get to live in one place. They won't always be moving around. They'll be able to have communities and families, and all of these kinds of things, I'm sure, would have been rolling around their mind as they wait for these men to get back and tell them what is that land actually like. Right? They'll actually be able to work too and not be slaves. It would have been awesome. So the spies, they get back. It's been 40 days, and they get back, and their two guys are carrying a cluster of grapes because it's so big. I looked up the world record for cluster of grapes, and it's about 25 pounds. So it's like massive. The grapes can be massive. And just imagine them, they're walking in, they have all this other fruit, ripe and delicious, and everyone has gathered because they're excited to hear about, okay, what do these men have to say? Now, all of us like to dream about our future. And maybe you look at a new house and you start to get excited and dream about what life might look like. Maybe the excitement about having a new child, or moving out to university, or a new job opportunity, or getting something that you've just been wanting for a really long time. Right? In different parts of our life, we all have these hopes and dreams about what our lives might look like, and we're super excited for maybe we'll actually get there. So let's jump down to verse 26, and we'll read to 33. So this is the speech, this is the report that the spies give when they actually do get back. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit that they had taken from the land. This was the report to Moses. "We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey, and here is the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast in the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley." But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood there before Moses. "Let's go at once and take the land," he said. "We can certainly conquer it." But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. "We can't go up against them. They're stronger than we are." So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. "The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers." And that's what they thought too. So the men come back, and they tell them that this land that they're getting ready, that they've been excited to go to for so long, is every bit as amazing as they had imagined. And they're not going to get to go there. Right? You can imagine how that would send people into a spiral pretty quick, right? The thing you were looking forward to is every bit as amazing as you thought, and you won't ever get it. The people start saying things like, God, why did you bring us here? Why didn't you just let us die in Egypt or in the wilderness? In their minds, God played a cruel joke on them. He saved them miraculously time and time again, only to bring them to the edge of what they were hoping for and to be excited, and for God to taunt them with it, and that was it. And for us looking, though, at this situation, likely we probably know how this ends. We look at these people and think, like, why, after all that God has done for you and continues to do for you every single day, right? That morning, they would have gotten up and picked manna off the ground that God miraculously provided for them. Why, after all that God's done for you and continues to do for you, do you doubt him? Right? Within the last few years, they've seen plagues against the Egyptians. They've walked through the ocean. They've gotten water from a rock twice. He's shown up on a mountain. The flocks of quail have just magically landed in their camp. And as a former slave nation, they won a war against another country. They've also been following a pillar of cloud and fire this whole time. And we look at them and think, like, there's so many examples for you to trust God. Why are you doubting now? Hasn't God shown you that he is more than able to help you defeat giants? Hasn't God shown you that you can trust him? And church, I think that we all have the same nagging fear as the Israelites did, right? The fear is, what if God doesn't show up this time? We can look back at our lives, and for some of us, we can look back at our family history and see how God has shown up over and over and over again. For me, look at my mom's side of the family. I come from a long line of believers. I can look at my grandpa on that side of the family. He wasn't supposed to live to be an adult because he had a health condition that he dealt with his whole life. He lived till he was 75. On my dad's side of the family, I can see how God can change people in amazing ways. I had an uncle who was born, and there's some pretty hard stuff that went about, and what should have been a family tragedy actually ended up in what saved my dad's and the rest of his family. I can see how God has provided for me time and time again, how he brought me here. And we can look at all of these things and be reminded of, like, man, God has done so much. And then something pops up, and the thought can come across our minds, but what if God doesn't show up this time, though? Or what if God fails me when I need him most, and my life and the life of those I love is just ruined? And if we're not careful, we can convince ourselves that our fear is a sure thing and it's definitely going to happen. And we try to do whatever we can to make sure that our fear doesn't actually come to life. And recently, an example where that came real for me, Shelby and I became foster parents last year, and on April 3rd, we had the privilege of welcoming a 10-day-old baby girl to live with us. And then for the next 9 months, we weren't aware of any family, and she fit in super great with our kids and with us, and we loved her to pieces. And then December, we were told that we were going to be able to adopt her, and we were super excited and started dreaming of, like, what might life be like with her. And then February, we got news that she's going for adoption, and we were not going to be considered. No explanation, and we were kind of scolded for asking questions. I went from being excited and dreaming of the future to those dreams now being dead, and we're trying to figure out what in the world do we do now? And how in the world are we supposed to work with these people who seemed to us bound and determined to make us out to be bad guys and to seem to have no interest in what we have to say or what best for her. All right, what do you do with the future that you're looking forward to, and then it's taken away only to be replaced with what you were actually afraid of? So let's hop back into the Bible. Numbers 14, the Israelites, they're panicking, and they're talking about picking a new leader and going back to Egypt, and they're trying to do whatever they can to make sure that they don't die going into the promised land. They're trying to do whatever they can to avoid this future they're afraid of that they can't control. And they're trying desperately to control what's going to happen. They're trying desperately to not have to trust God. And then the two spies speak up, chapter 14, verses 5 and the first bit of 10. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole community of Israel. Two of the men who had explored the land, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, "The land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them." But the whole community began to talk about stoning Joshua and Caleb. Right, the Israelites are panicking. Moses and Aaron don't seem to be saying anything. Caleb and Joshua stand up, remind everyone of the God that they follow. And they encourage everyone, we don't need to be afraid. We can be confident because God is with us. Or actually, maybe more, we are with God. The Israelites, they have this clear promise from God that he was going to take care of them, and that they can be confident because God said that he's going to give them this land. And they just needed to trust him. Now for us, though, sometimes we look ahead at the future and we don't have confidence that God is going to give us what we're hoping for because God hasn't promised us lots of those things. God hasn't promised us good paying jobs or good crops or nice families or even tomorrow. But God has promised us the same thing that he promised the Israelites. Matthew 28, verses 18 to 21. It's very likely, hopefully familiar. This is some of the last words of Jesus. Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this. This is for them now and for every follower of Jesus from then on. Be sure of this. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. We have the same promise as the Israelites, that God will walk with us no matter what we're facing. And in Romans 28, we're also told that God will work together, all things together for the good of those who love him. Now, not everything that happens to us is going to be good. But we can have confidence that no matter how hard the circumstances that we're going through, no matter how bleak the future looks, that we have a God who will walk with us and use it for good. All right, when the Israelites heard that what Caleb and Joshua said, though, when they heard that they should trust God, how did the people react? They wanted to kill him. Right, the people hear the reminder from Caleb and Joshua. They hear that they should trust God. but instead of letting go of their fear, they choose to hold on to it tight, and they start campaigning for how to kill these people because they see if this is the future that they're hoping for, and following God is going to lead them this way, well then I'm just going to try and get you guys out of the way because this is actually what I want. I don't want what God is leading me towards. I actually just want what I want. Right. It's really easy for us to put our ideas of the future as what's king, as what's good and what's best for us, right? Man, I would really love to have this ginormous house and have so much money I don't know what to do with. That would just be such a nice life. But maybe I know that's probably not what is not best for me. And we can put our ideas of the future as what's king, and we can put where God is leading us as like, I don't actually know if I want to go there. Right? We can doubt that God is good, we can doubt that God is in control, and we can doubt that he actually cares about us. And if we listen to those fears, we are going to miss out on a lot of the good that God has in store for us. Right? The Israelites thought that God had abandoned them, but what he was leading them to was more amazing than they could understand. Right? God was going to show them, again, one more time, how he was mighty and powerful and how he actually did care. He was going to provide for them a home, a good land, but their fear actually kept them from experiencing that because they didn't choose to trust God. They choose to go their own way, and God said, okay, the consequences of your actions is you actually aren't going to experience this land. Your kids are. And that was a more than fair punishment because they should have gotten much worse. God saved them from going actually their own way, but they also weren't going to experience the good thing that God had in store for them. Right? Hard things, terrible things will happen in our lives because we live in a fallen world. But that doesn't mean that God has abandoned us. It's just another opportunity for us to put our trust in God and to trust that his plan for our future is still what's best. We can and we should take time to look back in our lives, look back at our family histories, and see how God has provided for us again and again, and how he's been more than faithful. Because we're really prone to forget that, and there's lots of reminders in the Bible to, hey, don't forget what God has done. That doesn't mean, though, that it's easy when hard things pop up in our lives. It just means that we have a reference point to be like, no, I can trust God because of he's done all of these things. And it's hard, and I struggle with, is he actually going to show up this time? But I'm going to choose to trust him and to let go of my fear. Because he has brought me this far, and I trust that he is going to keep on leading me. And church, if we actually put our trust in God, especially when our future is uncertain and seems rocky, right? When we're staring down global war and $1.4 million houses, or fill in the blank with whatever you want to, right? If we can be like Caleb and Joshua and say, yeah, it's a pretty intimidating future that we're looking at, but look who's walking with me, or more accurately, look who I'm walking with. Right? Our confidence in following God and choosing to trust him instead of our fear will be an amazing witness to our community and to the world around us that Jesus actually has changed us, and we actually do believe this message that we say that we do, because we trust that he's in control and that he actually does love us, and that we don't have to fear and try and control our future because we're in his hands. Let's pray. God, I thank you for how good you are. And God, there is so many times where we actually do give into our fear and try and go our own way, at least for a little while. And I thank you for how patient you are in those times. God, I pray that you would help us to trust you and walk with you. And God, there is a lot of not fun stuff that comes up, stuff that is pretty sad and tragic, or also pretty scary and intimidating. I pray that we would be rock solid in the fact that you are there still, despite those tough times. And God, I just thank you so much that we don't have to be afraid, because you are good, you are there, and you do care for us, and that the future that you have is better than we can imagine. It may not be all glitz and glamour, but we'll be walking with you, and that is the best thing in the world. Amen.